The following are excerpts from a journal which I, John, kept from May through summer of 2010. I swear that this is my oath and testimony, and that every word I speak is the truth as I know it, and I take full responsibility. This audio blog was recorded on June 25th, 2011 at 5 p.m. and consists of sensitive material, so discretion is advised. Around early spring of 2010, during meditation, I heard high-pitched squeaks similar to fax machine tones. It didn't bother me at all, and I continued to meditate at will. These tones were translated into symbols, which changed into an incoming communication by a telepathic group which identified itself as the Greys. Even though I'd seen them once before, this was the first time I communicated with the Greys in this fashion. The communication, which seemed in part computerized and in part telepathic, continued with more symbols, which came more and more rapidly, and began to form images of deep space. So complex, I felt that I was there instead of remote viewing this from home. The point of interest was a black hole, consuming what appeared to be star nebulas, and a gigantic red planet surrounded by at least 3 rings of comets and space debris. I'm guessing due to its massive gravitational pull, all space debris was being pulled into orbit around the planet, as it itself was being dragged into a black hole along with everything in that area of space, and no stars were seen in the distance around it. An unknown number of extraterrestrial groups had spaceships in proximity to this occurrence, able to safely observe. After showing me this hectic region, which they described as a boundary of our universe, they continued on with the type of rhetoric common of the short gray synthetic humans. Now, before I get into what they said, let it be known for the record that after many run-ins with the Greys, I could fairly say that I do not like them. They have attacked me several times and invaded my living space on many occasions. They are liars, and many of you in the know have either heard or experienced this time and time again. But I'll say it again, these types of low-frequency, extremely advanced telepathic alien Greys are not to be trusted. Since they knew I'd seen them before, they had to start off with something, so the black hole was an amazing event to witness. However, I don't believe their subsequent information, but I will report what they said anyway in an effort to expose their mode of operations. To recap, they first identified themselves and then stated something bad is happening at the, in quotes, the edge of the universe. Our thoughts were then moved to the point of space where we could observe the black hole. They said there are some real tough humans out here who bother the Greys who only desire peace. The humans, once reaching the far ends of the universe, were attempting to turn back into females after they had eliminated their females at some point. Now, this is what the Greys had done. They had eliminated their females. People had it. But overall, their general message was these tough humans would threaten the ways of the Greys all the way until the end of time. The Greys went on to say the reason they looked as bad as they did was because they had transformed themselves into biological robots to be perfectly suited for deep space travel. And for a long time they went about perfectly adapted, because they basically had been merged with their spaceship and were primarily biological machines. So they were content for a while as they traveled through space and discovered new anomalies until they discovered the black hole. So, for the sake of more exploration, they flew ships into this black hole, yet they lost contact with all the ships that went through. So they suggested they transform a group of themselves completely into metal machines with synthetic human conscious downloaded, and possibly these metal Greys would have better luck going through the black hole. So the group that was transformed into robots lost what little synthetic humanity they had left. But this is all done in an effort to survive a trip to the black hole, discover its point of origin or the end of the end of it, and then report back. So The group of robotic Greys, as they said, was able to get through, and they found out that it led out toward Earth in today's world on the other side. So they decided not to contact the other Greys, especially seeing what the blue-skinned synthetic humans spent most of their time obsessed with, conducting these sick genetic experiments or abusing people in mind control games. So this splinter group hacked the Grey computer system and found some subsequent information on consciousness that the Grey Nation was trying to hide. So they hinted that they were the good Greys at odds with the bad Greys, which is total fiction and it's a common lie from them. They went on to describe themselves as extremely depressed and distressed, especially after discovering this black hole anomaly and realizing both the beginning and ending of time. With this knowledge, they stated they had nothing else to learn, nothing else to find, but they were now trapped in their mechanical or synthetic form. They were perfectly suited for space travel, but they had nowhere left to go because they essentially found the boundaries of space, which led back toward Earth. So the short Greys stated that once finding that the end of the universe led back to the start of a new civilization, they were extremely depressed because as before they were on the constant search for new discoveries. However, this final and revolutionary discovery kind of disturbed them. Because where do you go from there? Back on Earth? They didn't know what else to do. So they settled on constantly experimenting on living beings. And as I said before, these experiments had a lot to do with genetics, and on another level, it had a lot to do with consciousness. The Greys have coined the term containers. They call people containers or soul containers because they know that we reincarnate. But if you want to sound like a Grey, you too could run around and call people containers. Though the report on genetic experiments and mind control is true, the idea of a lost splinter group of Greys that has found special feelings for people is the typical rhetoric of the synthetic Greys. If you read other people's reports, many of them are generally the same. The Hollywood movie E.T. says it all. So they plan a lot of false stories to their abductees to confuse the reality that they are attacking them basically. Some of the stories Greys tell include time travel, which they do not have time travel capabilities. They also talk about life being holograms or some other computerized form. They try to blur reality and the importance of people's thoughts, feelings, and actions in the real and physical world. They try to confuse reality as much as they can using high levels of technology that center around holograms and implants. They do not want people to understand that consciousness is real and goes on forever, even after the death of the physical body. So the choices that you make in life are very important. This echoes for eternity. The Greys know this. This was some of the information that they were mixing with lies with their black hole story. This is why they call people containers. It's a derogatory term for human being. It's short for soul containers because they know we reincarnate, and the soul or the human spirit is as long as it stays high frequency, the human spirit lives on forever. So they ended their communication by saying with no more need to remain in their reinvented life form, they were extremely depressed, and this is very true. Their whole telepathic communication from them was filled with an acute depression. They are in pain, and they also pump drugs into their bodies, a mix of morphine and amphetamines to dull this pain, and they dwell in this low frequency state of obliterated depression. I have since learned that although the Greys choose to work with the Draco, and we see the disastrous outcome of this partnership, the synthetic humans are not slaves to the Draco in the conventional sense. That means they have their own bases, so they have their own civilization, they have their own government, and their kind possesses a hive mind that is linked with an advanced implant to a supercomputer. They have synthetic humans crossed with Draco hybrids that have been seen with the Buffath. I have also seen this type of hybrid alone. The Greys won't cross over to be all Drac hybrids to save their lives due to their genetic illness, because if they did, they would cease to be Grey synthetic humans and would primarily be a Drac hybrid and be consumed by that race. The hybrids have been seen in the Snake Brother rituals, ceremonies involving the Buffath. These hybrids are considered Snake Brothers, is what that means in their diplomatic language. After the initial communication, I had the great displeasure of communicating with the short grays on more than a few occasions, and this was always accompanied by pain. When they want to get your attention, they are quickly able to do so, most commonly by inflicting some sort of pain and then engaging you in a yes or no telepathic torture session. If they don't like your answer, they apply a pain which threatens to stop your heart. When telepathic communication occurs, you could feel their mindset. Their extremely low-frequency mindset of pain and depression is almost beyond description. They are a highly depressed and twisted consciousness. Suicide is often contemplated if you were to mind merge with these beings and feel their low-frequency general mindset, always amplified by their attacks. In other words, the dread they normally feel is mixed with painful bursts of energy they sent out during telepathic mind games. They enjoy mental battles of IQ or will. They are like an ancient child, childlike in some of their ways, ancient and cruel in others. They are constantly born, downloaded with extremely advanced information, and only live for a month. So it's like nothing I can compare it to or describe. An ancient and cruel evil person mixed with the strange naiveness of a child. They ask many questions. Tell us the worst thing you did. Have you ever thought of doing perverted things? They are very specific. They ask inappropriate and disgusting questions to disturb your mind. I spoke to them as though they were children. I told them they shouldn't speak that way. After days of pain, they offered me the ability to wish death upon myself, which they would gladly carry out. I struggled for days with this argument, going through almost constant pain. They made it clear that they could easily take control of most anyone's mind around me. This happened on many occasions. Often when I was driving, random people would jerk their car into my lane and threaten a head-on collision, for example. They demonstrated their control over what they called the herds. They were there during the ritual of the Black Sun with the Bufath and attempted to give me a heart attack and then blind me. During this, I telepathically stated a living will in which I stated I could not wish death or harm upon myself. Although some of the pain is telepathic, the Greys also use some form of ray technology which they attack you with, all through the midst of a mental game of chess. You will know when you give the wrong answer according to them, because they will fill you with pain and revulsion. They prove that they can control large groups of the general public at random, especially if they were not stopped by the opposite camp. I saw many times random people become affected and act out in confused and threatening ways. I've seen random people become easily possessed. During these attacks upon me, I was able to negotiate my life. I was able to pick up my children at school. I was able to work at construction sites. Due to my life, I get a lot of government surveillance, and I know the games that they play, but this is something different. When the Greys get involved, people such as myself know it, and others, well, those who are easily prone to sleep are jerked around like a puppet, and that is a very dangerous thing. When I was being attacked, I would think like a mantra, I command all evil away from me, and I would repeat this. I would try to keep everything level, but the Greys would invade my thoughts and grab my mind and scream, evil come into me, and then they would hit me with a huge amount of pain, threatening heart failure, until I consciously directed my thoughts back to a level of control. So it's like a tug of war over your own conscious thoughts, and they are very strong psychics. Do not underestimate them. They have hung out with the Draco for a long time, and look at the state of what that caused. But one thing I could say about the short Greys is that they are tough. Through the Greys, I learned of another type of alien, the insectoid class of extraterrestrial. At one point, it had come into the boundaries of Earth space, and the synthetic human Greys engaged the insectoids in battle and drove them off, but the experience left a lingering respect for these strangely psychic and high-tech level insectoids. They resemble a fly. Their heads and brains are segmented and divided into two regions, and they intimidated the Greys to such a degree. The Greys often use the memory image or psychic communication of the insectoids to intimidate human psychics.